Good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're tuned in to The Encourager, and my name is Nehru. Happy Tuesday. Today is a Tuesday, January 30th, 2024. I hope you're doing well, and your day is bright, despite what it might look like outside. It's supposed to be 80 today where I am, so that's pretty nice. Looks like the weather is turning. That's good. I am a warm-blooded creature. I would much rather baste than freeze any day of the week. You can't put enough clothes on at some point to be warm, but there's always a way to cool off. At least in my opinion, there is. And so, yeah, I like warm climates. I love motorcycles, and that's another reason why. And it provides more opportunity to enjoy those types of things. You know, I was born in Illinois, and Kevin had motorcycles when I was growing up, and he would take them to motorcycle shows and things like that. But living in Illinois, you know, you only have about 3, maybe 4 good months to really enjoy that motorcycle, you know, because once it gets below 70 degrees on a motorcycle, you know, it feels like 40 degrees, you know, at 30 miles an hour, if it's 60 degrees. So, and so, yeah, I like the heat, you know, I like the vitamin D on my skin. So anyway, wanted to talk, briefly, this time around about the challenges associated with your spiritual journey. And these challenges you do not experience going through a religious journey. The religious journey is a surface journey. The religious journey is what the world sees. So the world sees you going to church. The world sees the Bible in your back window or the fish on your bumper. Or you wear the I Love Jesus t-shirt, right? Or you teach children's church at church or whatever, Sunday school, if they still do Sunday school. That seems old school, I guess, in some way. To me, I haven't been to a Sunday school service since I was a kid, so that's not true. When Kevin had the church over in Apopka, I taught the men's Sunday school service, which was just me and my brothers, because Most High never blessed his churches to prosper because he was using witchcraft and kept voodoo or Ouija boards and stuff in his office at the church. He was fucking in the pulpit, you know, the women that he was with. He was a polygamist for 30-something years, for those of you who do not know. And so really just had no respect for a place that's been dedicated to the Father, to his work. And I believe the 40 to 60 years that he's serving now is just part of what his karma is for being the way that he is. And I only know him as he is this lifetime. You know, one thing that I've learned about our lifetimes is, and we do live multiple lifetimes, here and elsewhere. We are certainly not the only living beings. There are extraterrestrials, natural and spiritual. I'm an extraterrestrial, and I'm a descended ascended master healer, and I'm not the only one. Again, I say it all the time. I'm not the only one. And this is the reason why I want to talk about the challenges associated with this journey. Because oftentimes, you know, we hear things from people who have been successful at something, or once they've reached a freedom in some way, whatever that freedom is. Again, it could be a success. It could be a certain level of achievement. It could be an award. It could be a trophy. It could be an education, a degree, a certification. It could be a Nobel something, right? It could be a prize of some sort that's garnered, or highly sought after or highly respected, right? Whatever the goal happens to be, once someone gets on the other side and they tell the story, oftentimes the struggle to get there is overshadowed by the now we have arrived, okay? And focusing on the bright spots, which is good. You certainly should focus on the bright spots and the victory, enjoy the victory more than you focus on whatever the setback or the delay was, okay? And so that's very important to remember. But also, you don't want to use so much icing on the cake that you really don't get the substance, which is actually the cake. I tend to scrape off the icing on cakes, actually. I tend to scrape it off because as much as I enjoy pastries, the icing tends to be artificial. I don't drink a lot of sodas. I drank my first soda this year, and I probably won't drink another soda maybe even this entire year. I've literally gone years without drinking sodas. It's not something just because of the artificial whatever. And so for cakes, I tend to scrape off the icing at birthdays or celebrations or what have you. And so I think it's important that whoever it is who's speaking, let's take that Nobel Peace Prize recipient and them focusing on the journey, and then I'm thinking of Nelson Mandela, but focusing on the journey and or the victory is one thing. But let us not forget the climb up the hill through the mud, the dirt, the quicksand, the treacherous terrain, the cliffs and ridges that we almost went over. I shared some of that from a dream in a journal yesterday. I may be sharing more from my journal today. I'm not sure. We'll see how Most High guides me. And that's how I wake up every day. And I think that's what Paul, the Apostle Paul, meant when he says, I die daily. It is a waking up with knowing that you are wiser today than yesterday, better today than yesterday, more mature, clearer minded, focused. You are functioning consciously and not unconsciously. And you are awakened. And yet with that, each and every day, you know the enemy is relentless, and so therefore we are too. Okay? So for all the Luciferians and the warlocks and the witchcraft workers and the karmic societies out there that do things against you, Illuminati and people who are involved in Eastern Stars and Masons and Skull and Bones societies and all of that stuff, right? That is a real, legitimate demon spirit that is seeking to keep control of this planet. 100%, without a doubt, no question. This is why they've done things like MK Ultra and there's another one. I want to say it's called, I want to say 606, but that's probably incorrect. Don't quote me on that, please. But there's another something or other, and there's a couple of them that have been made public. As far as these government and global experiments on humans to see how they react in certain situations or with certain things in their systems and all that sort of thing. I listened to an interview from Tupac yesterday, and he was 22 or 23 when they interviewed him, and the wisdom that this man was speaking, and that's why I was born in I was born in the Midwest, lived on the East Coast for 30 years, but I am all West Coast. I am all Tupac. I am all Ice Cube. I am all desert mountains. I am that is me, and it's always been me. It's always called out to me. When I was in Arizona for military intelligence school, I would have stayed here if the Father, Most High, did not appoint me to or send me to the Rock of Central Florida. I would have stayed here in Arizona. I would have had no problem with that whatsoever. It would have been preferred. But anyway, you're obedient and blah, blah, blah. Right. but the challenges associated with the journey, with a spiritual journey compared to a religious journey. A religious journey is easy, okay? So a religious journey is goobers, peanut butter and jelly. And I'm coming up with these analogies as I'm literally sitting here speaking to you. And so thank you, Most High, for the metaphors and things that help to parables and things that get the message across clearer to those who may not understand spiritual or technical terms, right? People can speak to me in language that I don't understand. My goal is to ultimately, in my last day, be fluent in 5 languages total. Today I only really have one down, and that's Western English. And I really don't even have that down, right? Because I use slang, and, you know, if I get careless, I say ain't, which is in the dictionary, which doesn't necessarily make it okay, right? I was taught that that was not a word. And so, again, it's interesting how times change. And so when dealing with, looking at the challenges, so religion being like Goober's peanut butter and jelly. So those of you who know what Goober's peanut butter and jelly is, it's a brand of peanut butter and jelly where the peanut butter and the jelly is in one jar. Okay? And, you know, it's easy. Just take the bread out, right? Peanut butter and jelly all right there. If you want to cook a meal, it takes a lot more preparation, a lot more forethought, right? And that is more associated with spirituality. And more specifically, if you want to prepare a feast, is more like the spirituality process, okay? So it's a lot of work, especially at the beginning, okay? And so what are some of the challenges and things that I experienced in going through my dark night of the soul and my spiritual awakening process that I don't mention often, but that were real? And again, we're a part of the journey. So one of the things is body aches. Okay. So when you're going through a spiritual awakening or spiritual ascension, and often these things are in timing with the moon cycles. Okay. I shared the Moon series, which, is a book that I picked up, Living by the Moon. It's written by Stephanie Gailing. If you have not looked at the series, especially for whatever your moon size is, you may not want to listen to multiples, but whatever your moon sign is, I would encourage you to listen to that or find that video. And it's on a playlist on this channel. And find out what your moon sign is and listen to that video if you don't listen to any of the others. If you're with someone, you know, your spouse, I would encourage you also to listen to their moon sign. Because if one is religious and one is spiritual, that's not going to work. Okay? Because that's being unequally yoked. And that's never going to happen. That's never going to be successful. Okay? Even if it looks like it on the outside, it's never going to be successful, truly. Like that church that Kevin had, looked great on the outside because it had a steeple at the top of the building, right? So it looks like a church. Should be a good place. But it's hellions in there doing witchcraft, right? Fucking in the pulpit. Literally, he's done this. I'm not making this up. Right? You want to disrespect Most High? You want to... I can't even put into words. I would be so terrified. I think my penis would crawl into my belly if I tried to do something like that. I would be so terrified to do something like that. I think I would go up in flames before I even got to the pulpit to do that or altar. I would probably hope that, like, don't allow me to go through this. I know I'm going, don't allow, like, I would be, I don't know. I can't even explain the evilness within someone that it would take to do something like that. Okay. So body aches. Okay. So I remember, and it still happens today, whenever I'm going through an ascension, it's a constant process. Okay. And by the way, once you go spiritual, you'll never be able to go back to religion, because religion will be like puke to you. It will be spoiled meat, milk. It will be putrid to you. Religion will be once you start your spiritual journey. This is how you know if you're actually on one or not. Okay, so if you are not recognizing synchronicities, if you don't look into them, so you see them, right? The other day, I think I failed to mention the rest of the story. I was talking about a gentleman, Jim Snyder, who would come to the Rock of Central Florida and speak from time to time. He's actually one of the first gentlemen, if not the first gentleman, who came to the Rock when I arrived there in 2003. And when I got there, in a span of about 6 months, Steve had about 3 different speakers there that he was in relationship with. One was his spiritual father, Apostle F. Nolan Ball, who passed some years ago. He was the senior minister at the Rock of Panama City for, I don't know, a long time. Many, 40, 50, 60 years. I don't even know, a very long time. And so that's where Steve was before he was sent out to establish the Rock of Central Florida. But Jim Snyder, he was one of the first speakers that I saw, other than Steve, at the Rock of Central Florida. And when he got there, we had 2 services that day. We didn't typically, and this was a good thing because Steve believes in family, and the church takes away from the family. So the church has 15 services a week, and yet they teach about and speak about family. And then when families fall apart, they don't know why. Well, because you're not sitting around the table having communion with each other. What about your day? I don't know. Nehru Jr. Like, how was your day? You know, like you don't know about those. So you don't know where they are spiritually. You don't know why, because you're constantly in church listening to someone try to tell you how to live your life when you're not actually listening to live it for yourself. Okay. A lot of good things that I learned at the Rock, right? The last thing I learned was that they don't hear, Steve, doesn't hear as well as I do. And that's the reason why I left, because he wouldn't believe that there was someone in his congregation doing witchcraft against one of his spiritual sons. He wouldn't believe that. So, and yeah, she was there too. She was teaching a children's ministry, or part of the children's ministry. So anyway, he said, Jim Snyder said, in that second service. The first service, you know, sat there, we enjoyed the service. It was great. Again, I had been there for just a few months, fresh out of the military, still bleeding OD green, still very much religious, believing that I needed to go to church to wearing a tie every day because that's what my daddy taught me. And eventually I gave away all 15 suits I had. I had like 50, 60 something ties. I gave all that stuff away. In fact, they had a closet, a place, you know, where you could donate clothes. The Rock did. And on Saturdays, they would feed the homeless and needy and give them clothes and things like that. And I gave all those suits and all that stuff to that Rock, to the closet, right, to that place at the Rock, or ministry, I guess is a better word. And because I wanted to get rid of anything religious in me. I was like, yuck, get it out, get it out. And I've always been that way, and I'll forever be that way. When I recognize something that's yuck in me, I'm definitely wanting to get it out because I want to be the sharpest. I believe in speed and accuracy, right? And I do believe that this is a rare time that Most High has had me sit on my hands because there's so much happening spiritually that he needed me to be still. Right. So going through my spiritual ascension, I went very fast and I moved very fast. I ascend very fast. But he needed me to sit down because you can outrun your purpose. And I'm just saying this. So you can outrun your purpose, meaning your timing, because of your lack of patience, you can be ahead of where Most High and his divine timing is. Okay. And this is good for me to hear. So good for me to hear. And so, yeah, all right. But he told me, Jim Snyder said in that second service, he said, when I met you, the first service, he called me out. He said my name. He said, when I met you the first service, there was something about you. He said, you startled me when I turned around to meet you. And he said, I don't get startled. And he was a big guy. Today he's slimmed down, he's lost weight, but he's still a tall guy. Jim Schneider is probably 6'3", 6'4". Back then he had a mullet. Mullet. And then later years he came back, and I remember he used to talk about himself, and he was like, why didn't you guys tell me I had a mullet? But he's a big guy, right? And I remember him saying to us in that service, that I startled him. He had me come up front and talk to him, or he was talking to me. I wasn't talking to him. And he said, you startled me in a way that I've never been startled. Right. And he said, I knew that there was something so he said, I knew I was going to be asking Steve about you during lunch after the first service. And he said, I want you to know that Yahweh searched the earth to join you to this man. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, all right. I'm listening to what he's saying to me. I'm like, okay. Everybody else is listening. All right. Yep. Okay. And he said, I saw you when I was talking to Steve, and I asked Steve about you during lunch. And he started talking to me about how you were in the military and the father miraculously got you out before you were going to another deployment. I was due to go on another deployment as the military intelligence officer for the unit I was attached to. And, but Divine Source, Most High Yahweh God, did not want me to go on another deployment. He knew it was time for me to get out at the end of year 8. Again, 8s are very important in my life. All right. So he knew it was time to get out. So I was already extended beyond my original ETS date. The CEO of the company that was already I was in military intelligence school. They were already in combat deployment training. I was going to catch up with them after my military intelligence school. I was due to graduate in February. February. And, but my commander sends me a letter out of the blue, right? And he said, Sergeant Thomas, we've held you beyond your ETS date. Okay. And we are, as you know, we're on orders to deploy. We are actually already at our deployment, training facility, which was at Fort Stewart in Georgia. And so he said, I'm leaving it in your hands. You can come on another deployment, on this deployment. You can join us on this deployment, or you can choose to ETS out of military intelligence school or from military intelligence school. And again, I knew that it was time for me to go. I wasn't due to go on another deployment. Kevin was praying and doing witchcraft and hoping that I would go because he was hoping that I would be unalived over there. Okay? I know that for a fact. Most High showed me in dreams. And not only that, the women who have left him told me that he was doing witchcraft and hoping that I was going to be deployed again and die, right? And be unalived over there. So I said, of course, I ETS'd. And so he told me that the Most High searched the earth to join me to Steve Parker and that house, specifically to Steve Parker. Okay? Again, I think that so much more was to come out of that relationship. I think Steve dragged ass. Maybe I dropped the ball at times too. And they tried me at doing various things. But the truth is, I never really was in the position that I was supposed to be in, whatever that position was. Steve admittedly said that when his mother-in-law Linda passed in 2009, that he should have he was prejudiced towards women being in ministry, and he's since changed his position on that. But he'll regret that for the rest of his life, because religiousness had him saying that women didn't deserve to be on full-time ministry, on staff, and blah, blah, blah. What a bunch of garbage. Okay? And so I'm listening to Jim Schneider tell me this story, or tell me these things. And then he said, I want to give you a nasty pledge, right? He said, I saw you falling back with your hands wide open. You didn't care where you were landing, because you knew that you were not going to hit the ground. He said, and he kind of nudged my shoulder. He said, I want to give you a push into that place, that nesty fall, right? Where you know you are free, and I'm in that place today. I don't know if I ever got to that place when I was at the Rock, and I was there for 20 years. And I know for sure I'm in that place today, where I am bold, I am carefree, I am free, I am that bird. Okay? And so one of the things that Jim Schneider says, or said another time, was about synchronicities. And he talked about how he saw 9/11, 911 multiple times throughout the day. And he said sometimes he'd look at the clock in the morning, it'd be 9/11. He said, and sometimes he'd look at the clock and he'd see 9/11 like 4 and 5 times a day, which obviously is impossible. But he was just talking about the synchronicities, and he didn't even call them synchronicities. He didn't call them that. He just said, you see the same number again and again, or he said, I keep seeing 911. He didn't call them synchronicities. Okay. And so even the religious people, these things are happening to them too. It's just a matter of them recognizing them. Okay. And so one, the challenge is breaking away from religion. That is the A1 number one. Number one, regardless of what religiousness you are. So you might be one that does not go to church. You might be one that just sits at home and watches services on TV and thinks that Joel Osteen is enough. You might be one who doesn't, nothing. You believe in God, you pray, and yeah, that's it, right? And that is honestly probably the more sincere way to be, right? Without all the church and televangelists and all of that stuff, right? You'd probably be better off just doing that, just praying and just living your life as you will. You know what I mean? You'd probably be better off than being religious. And so, yeah. And religiousness, by the way, is just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's all religiousness is. So you can be religious about anything. I do that religiously, whatever that is. In most cases, you probably should not do whatever that is religiously. And so body aches is something that I experienced and continue to experience throughout my ascension process. And again, these are, for me, I've noticed that these are associated with the moon cycles. Okay. And so when you're going through an ascension, you experience headaches. I am not one to get headaches. I could be dehydrated and not have a headache. You know, I talk about my 4.5 years of dialysis and the rare autoimmune virus that caused a kidney failure and that I never dealt with headaches throughout any of that. I don't get headaches. So if I do get a headache, it's definitely a strong sign of something. But I was experience these temporary and I was like, whoa, what is that? Right? And then I had to do my research and find out that these things, back aches, right? You have 33 vertebrae. That's extremely important, 33. And I'm like, why is my back, why is my back hurting? I didn't lift anything. I don't have back issues. Like I have maybe a little something with my lower back, and that's from having my tailbone bruised when I played football. But generally, like my middle upper back, it's really strong. I don't have any problem with that. I'm like, why is my, again, I had to do my research, found out that these are things that your physical body experiences as your spirit is ascending. Okay, so body aches. And so something else that you deal with when you're going through the ascension process is the separation or the isolation. And I often speak about how this is a good thing. Most people are afraid to be alone. That's why they go from cat to cat and from banana to banana, if you know what I'm saying. This is the reason why people do this, because they are insecure within themselves and they think that they need that cat or that banana next to them or in them, or they need to be in the cat or they need the banana in them in order for them to feel complete, not realizing they are complete in and of themselves. I posted a video a couple of days ago. It has 9 views. I posted a video the other day titled, "Men Don't Need Pussy for Their Purpose and Women Don't Need Dick for Their Destination." If you haven't listened to that video, I encourage you to do so. And it really just goes into why and how you are complete in and of yourself. And bringing someone into your life does not make you more complete. Okay? They add to you, but they do not make you more complete. Okay? This is like people who are going into marriage or in relationships and they're like, maybe this is just a press play video. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking, maybe this is just a press play or press record and just release what's in you type of thing. Because I'm seeing that this is really not going down that road of really focusing on, right? I'm saying as Most High is giving me, and it's just not leading me down that road. So, okay. So anyway, most people are in relationships and they're like 50-50. Are you really okay with me giving you half of who I am? Are you really okay with that? And who are you giving the other half to? Man says some dumb ass shit all the time. All the time. And people walk around regurgitating that shit. People say it. Relationships are definitely 50-50. What? You know, if you got 50 right? Half the questions on your test, right? Do you know you'd fail? That's an F. In fact, that might be a Q. Right? 50-50? Come on, quit it, right? If you're not giving 100, and that's not both of your perspectives, please get out of that ship. Get out of the ship. Okay? So, when I was going through my spiritual, again, mainly the dark night of the soul, the isolation process or time, okay? And it's not forever. It's temporary. Okay? And that's even for myself. As comfortable and as much as I enjoy my solitude and me being by myself, because I'm just so comfortable within myself. I don't need any external influences or additives and that's such a good word. I don't need any additives to me in order to complete me. Right? I was made complete. You were made complete. Again, whatever else that comes your way is the icing. You are the cake. Okay? You are the cake. And so the isolation can be difficult. I was extremely social before. As a business owner, I was part of Business Networking International, or BNI. It's a global networking organization started by Dr. Ivan Meisner back in 1988 or something. And today they have some 10,000 chapters around the world. They meet on a weekly basis. And the core of the focus is that, if I refer business to you, you refer business to me, we can build our businesses together and create a stronger local economy and environment and so on and so forth, especially for the mom and pop types of operations, the small service, small product businesses and things like that. All right. And so I was a part of that. Lots of social activities. I was the treasurer of 2 nonprofits. And so just very, very, very busy, just very, very busy socially. And then outside of that, I would go on Eventbrite, and if there were business events and things like that that I wanted to be a part of, I would sign up for those or get tickets for those. Just very, very, very socially active, very busy, right? And one day I realized that all of that was starting to shrivel up, and it was really starting to kind of be taken away from me, really. Okay. Because I was still at that time feeling like I wanted to be out there and doing it and in it. But it was really starting, I was being pulled away from it, and it was being pulled away from me. And it was happening long before I ever realized it was happening. Okay. I just looked up one day and realized the phone was not ringing as much. So clients had kind of evaporated. I don't know what happened. I did know it was smear campaigns and witchcraft ultimately. And from the woman that I was engaged to and her cronies. And so I began to see that something was needed. And I remember telling her, I said, you know something? I said, I'm going to start meditating. And I was actually doing it for our relationship because shit was going downhill quick. But it was actually for myself. She wasn't interested. Okay? Which is fine. Again, you are complete in and of yourself. You don't need anybody to okay your business idea. You don't need anybody to, do you know why Formula 409 is 409? I've mentioned this before. It took 408 times to get to the right formula. Do you know how many times the Colonel tried his recipe and presented it before others? Do you know how many times Abraham Lincoln lost the political race that he was in until he got to the White House? He lost all of them until he ran for presidency. Okay? So you might think that all the no's is a no. Well, guess what? The only no that matters is your no. That's the only no that matters in your life. If you tell yourself no or yes, you're right. Whatever you tell yourself about whatever situation you're in, you're right. Whatever decision you want to make, you're right. Okay? So I've learned to keep my business ideas to myself. Okay? Back then, I was free flowing. I had an idea about something. I'm not even going to mention it. And I shared it with one of the gentlemen who's a part of the Rock. Right? We're very good friends. In fact, his wife is the mutual friend that I met Roxanne through. Okay? And she's the fallen Scorpio, right? That was or is doing witchcraft against me with her and her aunt or attorney, whatever, right? And so she introduced me to Roxanne, right? So we were very close, very, very close, right? We'd hang out with them all the time, and their kids, they'd come over. When I moved in with Roxanne, they'd come over, we spent time together and all of that. And I thought it was a great extended family. I really, really did, right? Come to find out that's not the case. And in fact, after I decided to leave the Rock, at some point, Justina, the wife who introduced me to Roxanne, she sent me a text message and asked me if I called DCFS on her. And I was like, what? Why in the world would I call DCFS on you? I said, I think you and Sam are great parents. Why would I do that? Are you joking? She texted me on the old phone number because they don't have my new number. And I'm like, where did that come from? I told her, no, absolutely not. I think you and Sam are fantastic parents. I would never do something like that. Oh, okay. I just thought because of all the lies you were telling on Roxanne, I just thought that, and this was after I sent the email to Steve telling him about the witchcraft. Right? So she's involved some way in this situation, in that situation. Okay? Maybe Roxanne's licking her. Maybe she licks Roxanne. I don't know. Maybe her, Sam, and Roxanne did a threesome. I don't know. Right? But Sam, he's an IT specialist. I shared this this IT idea with him, right? And we were going to go into business together, right? Yeah. I'll just keep this to myself. My ideas and I will just, keep this to myself until someone is verified on my side. You know what I mean? You have to have a stamp of approval on this. You know, you get your clothes and things and it says inspected by. If it doesn't say inspected by 777, expected by 333, I'm not accepting it. Right? And so the isolation part it's a challenge. Again, for me, it wasn't, because I don't mind being by myself. I would say I love being by myself, and that seems strange to say, but I do. And that's why I change it to I don't mind being by myself, or I enjoy being by myself, right? I really do, okay? And so that part is what you can expect. It's guaranteed that during your dark night of the soul and the major spiritual awakening, because after your dark night of the soul, there is a major spiritual awakening, you are going to have to spend some time in isolation. This can be extremely, extremely difficult if you are married, you have kids that still live at home that are not self-sufficient, you have to put their clothes out, bathe them, blah, blah, blah. You have to do those things, right? But you can't get away from those responsibilities. Fortunate for me, I lived alone, just me and my dog, and I was self-employed. So I kind of had the perfect situation for me to go through this process and to do it rapidly. And I still think it was, in my opinion, it was still slower than I thought, even though it was faster than what the witchcraft workers could keep up with. And I ran circles around them 10 times now. You know, you run around a track. I remember 4 times is a mile, if I remember correctly, around an official track, you know. And I remember, you could lap people, the great runners. I wasn't one of those. You could lap people, right? And I've lapped them 10 times, right? They can't keep up with me, not even they just couldn't, right? Because I'm speed and accuracy. And so embrace your isolation period, because the quicker you embrace the processes associated with your dark night of the soul and the challenges associated with that, the better. So the sooner you cut off the friends that you no longer need, the family members that no longer serve your good, that you know are karmic, that talk about you behind your back after they just left your house, or you just blessed them, or you have blessed them in the past and they still talk about you, the sooner you can come to grips with the truth of them no longer serving your good and you putting up boundaries, the better you're going to be and the faster you're going to get through your ascension process and your dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul is an extremely painful process. It's painful emotionally, and physically. So for me, my dark night of the soul was kicked off by the betrayal of a twin flame. Okay. And so as I began to burp, as confirmation comes through, I haven't eaten anything or anything. So these burps that just happened, like 3 of them in a row, it's confirmation. It's like a dog barking when I say so, or a horn honking, or an airplane overhead when you say something. And these are things that I've learned to pay attention to. So when you ask the Father something, Father, should I blah, 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 and you hear a dog, woo, 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 that's an answer immediately after you ask. Okay, 44:27 when I looked over at the timer on the video, right? You see, there's a bird outside talking, right? I'm highly connected to those. But the sooner you embrace dismissing those that no longer serve your purpose, the better you're going to be and the faster you're going to go through your ascension process. Okay? But it's painful, the dark night of the soul. I talk about the 3 days I spent in the bed. I didn't eat anything, and the only reason why I drank something was to be faithful over the kidney that I had received on 7/7/17. That was the only reason why I drank water. Otherwise, I would have been dehydrated for 3 days too under the covers. Just sobbing, just hurt, broken, just in a very desolate place. And I was there by myself, completely there by myself. Okay? It's interesting that we consider ourselves to be spiritually connected to people. And those people, in such times of spiritual turmoil, they do not reach out to me. So Judy did not reach out to me. She's the woman who I suspect birthed me. And I do say suspect. Okay? She never reached out to me. Okay? Steve never reached out to me. In fact, I told you, he doesn't even believe that someone could be sitting in his chairs and doing witchcraft against people. He doesn't even believe that. He's that naive to believe the only people who walk into his place are righteous people. The devil goes to church, motherfucker, and the devil is lazy as hell. So guess what? The devil riding a motherfucker there. He ain't walking. He riding somebody there. How does he ride somebody there? Karmically. That's how he rides somebody to church. Okay? So if you think the devil don't show up at church, think again. You think to swim, you got to think to win. I'm all about Ice Cube. Pray to the Lord that don't bust out, pull out, go the nigger route, listen to the shout. You can do it, put your back into it. You can do it, put your ass into never mind. So I don't know where that's coming from. Again, I'm West Coast at heart. So anyway, yeah. So the sooner you embrace these things, and you have to get okay with going through the process alone. If you are not okay with doing it alone, you are not going to do it, because you are going to be alone, even if you have a spouse, even if you have a significant other, even if you have kids. Spiritually, you are going through this journey alone. Because Most High deals with you and you only. Spirit deals with you and you only. He's not going to your husband and saying, hey, you need to straighten out your woman, man. He's not going to your wife and saying, hey, he's out of control. You better go get him. No. Most High is going to you and be like, hey, Mike, wake the fuck up. You sleep, brother. Stop treating your wife and kids like that. Hey, Julie, wake up. Stop treating your fucking husband like that. Right? Stop talking to your kids like that. Maria or whoever. You know what I mean? Right? He's going directly to the source. So, get comfortable with the separation, even if it's temporary. Because some will be temporary disconnections and some will be permanent. Get comfortable with whichever category those friends and family members, associates fall into. Be okay with that. Okay? Because even in scripture, we're told that there are times and seasons for everything. A time to live, a time to die, a time to sow, a time to reap, a time to rend, a time to... There's a time for everything. A time to cry, a time to smile, a time to laugh, a time to... It's a time. A time to relax, a time to work, a time to give, a time to receive. Right? There are seasons. Right? And so The sooner we recognize this and not become attached to something, and this is such a vital principle of spirituality. You cannot become attached to anything, because the only thing that's guaranteed is not death and taxes, because we can be immortal. You can ascend to the point to where you can be immortal. Oh, yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. I'm immortal. This is my 10th time here on this planet. And last, thankfully, cleared my karmic bloodline, my shamanic bloodline, my Egyptian shamanic bloodline. I'm good to go, right? If there was Lemurian bloodline that I needed to clear, whatever bloodline that is, and I continue to learn about myself, whatever that is, I've cleared that up, and I'm happy about it. My next lifetime, I'll be somewhere else, on some other planet, in some other dimension, on some other timeline. Okay, and so the sooner you embrace these things, the better, and not becoming attached to things emotionally is so huge, because the emotional side of us is what keeps us attached to karmic situations, karmic people, karmic timelines. So you can timeline jump, okay? In the same lifetime, you can timeline jump. How do you do this? The plans and things that I have for you, Jeremiah 29:11. It's one of my favorite scriptures. It's also my birth date, 11/29. Okay? The things that I have for you, the plans that I have for you, they are to prosper you. They are to expand your territories. Okay? They are to enrich your life. These are the plans that Most High has for you. Okay? And so when we look at the journey, we have to be willing to detach ourselves in order to see and experience our highest, purest, truest self. We have to be willing to detach ourselves from things and people, places. We have to. Because if we don't, whatever it is that we are emotionally attached to will keep us in that dimension, keep us in that specific matrix, whatever that happens to be. It could be associated with your job. It could be associated with relationship with your kids. It could be relationships with your spouse, with your lover, with your friends, with your where you are in life, your occupation. It could be anything that keeps you locked into a specific matrix. So you have to be willing to not be attached, or to be willing to detach. Okay? And so that's another part, a challenge of this journey, right? That is, again, once you reach the finish line, everybody's cheering. You get your medal. Congratulations. How do you feel? I'm going to Disney World, right? And you see all the good things. So you see the high lights. But what about the low lights? Again, to understand and to understand. Overstand and understand. Okay? I think I said understand twice. But to overstand and understand. Okay? When that time and season comes for you, you're going to have to walk it alone. This is a challenge that you're going to have to embrace if you want to successfully fulfill your prophecy. And there's no way around it. So there's a way. You don't have to go buy the goobers. Okay? You can go out and you can get the peanut butter and jelly separately. The goobers is the easy way. Just all nicely packaged there. You know, like a program at church. What do? They go there, you sing 2 or 3 worship songs, choir songs, A and B selection. They used to call them when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. We're going to have an A and B selection by adult choir. We're going to have an A and B selection by, then we're going to have a C selection by youth choir. Right? When what they really needed to have was a C-section and fucking give birth to that shit and just let it go. That's what they really need to have, a C-section, right? a cesarean. That's what they really needed to have, and not a C-selection from the youth choir, right? And that's comical when I say that. Yeah, dog, brrr, that dog barking right there. And so getting out of that routine, and after I probably started to feel like that at the Rock after probably about year 16 or 17, I was like, I got to a point where I was like, I was starting to feel like, is this it? Like, go to church, worship team sings, Steve speaks every week. At the end of 6 days, I know what I'm going to do on the 7th day. I'm going to be showing up there at 10 o'clock. I'm going to get done at about 11:30. I'm going to talk about how I go to lunch, what I'm doing for lunch. I'm going to laugh and smile with some people. Oh, I'm greeting this week. I was a greeter for years. They used to call them ushers, but I'm a greeter. They called them greeters. Oh, I'm greeting today. Okay. Right? For years. Same process. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Right? And so at some point it became that. It didn't start out like that. Again, I was sent there. But it became that because, again, at some point, the only thing that's guaranteed is change, not death and taxes. Because there's such thing as tax avoidance. I'm not talking about tax evasion. There's tax avoidance. You can create trust, diamond trust, family trust, irrevocable trust, revocable trust. There's all kinds of trust you can create that helps you avoid taxes for generations. Rothschilds, for generations, it helps you avoid taxes, okay? Or at least pay minimal taxes, right? So, and those are legal ways. This is how the rich get richer. The poor don't, because the poor can't afford to have a trust or don't know about the trust because they're ill-informed, right? So that's something for somebody who's probably looking for ways to lower their tax. Well, you want to do that? Buy a trust, put your car in the trust, put your house in the trust, put your business in the trust, take your name off the trust, take your name off the business, take your name off the car, take your name off the house, and then no one can come over to you and sue you because when their attorney look your name up, they'll see that you only have $225 in the bank. You might be a millionaire. You might be a billionaire, but they see that you only have this. They might see you have a Ferrari, but they can't do anything with it because it's not registered in your name, right? So this is how we protect generational wealth. So say yes to the mission. I remember one time we used to have intercession at 6 o'clock, 6:30 or something in the morning at the Rock every Wednesday. And they did it for years. And I enjoyed that because it was time for us to come together collectively, same heart, same mind, and declare, decree over people, places, events, and whatever that happened to be. Typically there was a blackboard up there, and someone would write something up there, whoever was leading that intercession. I remember after I rededicated myself to the Father in 2007, I remember we had intercession one time, I just, towards the end of that intercession, I just started shouting out, yes. And it was like, yes, Father, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Daddy, I said, yes, Daddy, yes, 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 yes. And everybody was quiet. No one was saying anything else. I'm just over there on the side, and I'm just like, yes, yes, Daddy, yes, yes. And that was my declaration. That was my crying out. That was my, I don't give a fuck what's happening. I'm never going to leave. I'm never walking away from you again. I'm never turning my back on you again. I will die fulfilling my prophecy and the purpose for which I was birthed. I will die doing that. I'm not, this time, I'm all in. I'm all in. Let's do this shit. Let's go. Right? And so I remember that day. Right? And that was me with an outward expression like a baptism is. A baptism doesn't mean anything spiritually. It's just an outward expression. To say, this is my dedication. And to me, that's what that was. It was just to let everyone else know, whoever else was there at that time, this is my dedication here to Most High. Yes, Daddy. Whatever you want, baby. I'm all in for eternity. Okay? And so I always feel bad whenever I go over an hour. And so whatever you're going through, the challenges associated with your spiritual ascension, and I like using examples of myself because, again, I'm so far from perfect. When I go number 2, it still stinks. I'm not I don't glow in the dark. You know what I mean? I hope I'm making sense. And so it's good to share the challenges and not just the victory. Okay? Because this journey isn't easy, and anything that you take on isn't easy. I heard someone say the other day, they were talking about Kobe and how relentless he was at his practice and his determination to be the best, and not the best in anyone else's eyes but his own. That's why he was like, he never included himself in the GOAT conversation. When you asked him about his top 5, he was like, man, I'm not even close, because you got Will, you got Shaq, you got this person, you got that person, you got Bob, you got Bill Russell, you got Bob Cousy, you got Pettit, you got Jerry West, you got, he was naming, he was like, nah, man, I'm not even, nah. But it was in him. He wanted to know that when he left it all out on the court, and he did with 60 points in his last game, leave it all out on the court, when it's all said and done, to me, I'm at the top. To me, I gave it my all. And to me, internally, that is what makes me that. I don't care what anyone else says. That's me. And that's my impression of myself. Okay? And so they talked about how the great ones, the greatest ones, are a little psycho. Right? They talk about how Michael Jordan, how he was the black Jesus on the court. Right? He was a little psycho. You have to be outside of the box. When you think about, I think about people who have changed history, like Albert Einstein, Benjamin Franklin. Right? Think about these people. I forget the brown person who discovered the traffic light. I forget their name. But you think about these individuals that revolutionized the way that we do things. Tesla, Nikola Tesla. And some of these ideas were completely bizarre to man at the time that they were presented. But they revolutionized the way that we function today. Henry Ford and the assembly line, right? Growing up, it felt like, I don't know if this is what we were actually taught, it felt like we were taught that Henry Ford invented the car. He didn't invent the car. He came up with the assembly line process, which made the manufacturing, the production of cars at its infancy faster and a more efficient process. Okay, he didn't invent the car. Okay, and so, but he revolutionized that process. Otherwise, we might have 200 cars produced a year. All right. So, you see, hear that siren? Right. So, you deserve credit for the hard work that you've done, for the difficult work that you've done. If you haven't done the difficult work, do the difficult work, because it's going to be rewarding not just at the end, it's going to be rewarding throughout. Because even going throughout my dark night of the soul, I was reassured, I was protected, I was being spoken to, I was still being shown things, I was still dreaming, I was hearing clearer, the downloads were faster and more prominent. And so be a little crazy and crazed about your truth, about your purpose here. Be a little crazed about it. Don't fit in, stand out. Don't fit in, stand out, right? I think about, I don't know if any of you do this, but I think about often, who would I be like the artist today? And we've all done it. You know, you're growing up, you're like, man, I would like to be, I don't know, Michael Jackson. He was the star, right, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, especially the 80s. And I never said I wanted to be Michael Jackson, right? But there were artists that in my adult years, I don't think there was any artist that I wanted to be as a kid. But if I was an artist as an adult, there are a few people that I would be, or that I would fashion myself after. Okay? Because their style, their mantra, their demeanor, their disposition, it speaks to me, right? So I would be maybe a Lenny Kravitz, a Maxwell, a Prince. I would be that kind of artist, right? In their dress, their attire, and in their music. I would be that kind of artist. Okay? And so those artists, certainly Prince, those artists to me, they stand alone. They stand alone in their voice, certainly, right? In their style of music, they stand alone to me. It's sultry, it's sexy, it's a little promiscuous, and yeah, right? And so, and I mean promiscuous as in not necessarily in a dirty way. I mean like promiscuous and in, ooh, what's that? Like that kind of, like, intriguing, interesting, right? And so you have to step outside of the norm. Again, stand out, not try to fit in, okay? And so, again, I know this is run over an hour, and certainly I didn't, when I pressed record, I thought I was going to be talking about focusing on strictly the challenges associated with going through the dark night of the soul, and focusing on those things that are not so fluffy and all gooey and yummy and artificially flavored and all of that stuff, but focusing on the hard things, you know? And the dark night of the soul can be looked at as some type of dark love or tough love from the Father, right? And it could be triggered by any number of things. Again, mine was triggered by a relationship. Yours could be triggered by any number. It could be triggered by an illness, an almost near-death experience, or a relationship. It could be triggered by anything. But when it happens, I encourage you to embrace it and all the journeys associated within it. Because it's extremely rewarding, and yes, it's difficult. It's difficult to be the one in the basketball, on the basketball court, you know, when everybody else is out at the club. But when your passion is what your passion is, and you are diligent and you don't need anybody else, you're okay to go to the gym and practice by yourself. You don't care what everybody else is doing. You don't pass them the ball because you don't trust them, because they don't have the same dedication as you do, right? But you are dedicated to your purpose. So you go into the gym, again, when everybody else is out clubbing. Okay? And again, that's only temporary. right? There were times that Kobe went out to the club. I'm sure they were few and far between, but there were times. And he still got up and was on the court at 5 o'clock in the morning, talking about where y'all at, right? And so it's okay to be a little crazy. It's okay to be a little cuckoo, right? About a little obsessed, maybe. It's okay about your spiritual journey and the reason why you're here. Kobe said, the one mistake that most people make is that they think they have enough time. Okay? So don't think you have enough time and be procrastinating about the reason for which you were birthed. Be diligent. Okay? Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you've listened to this entire thing, oh, bless you. Thank you again. My purpose here is to help us become our highest, purest, truest versions of ourselves as that motorcycle starts up. My purpose here is to help us become our highest, purest, truest versions of ourselves. And that's done through the challenges, and that's done through the victories, right? And so thank you so much again for tuning in. My name is Nehru. This is The Encourager. Thank you so much. Be of good courage. Be blessed. Tune in next time. Take care.